Let's start it off here and have it right from the top, because there was a conversation for a couple months here, Aaron, who was going to be the number one overall pick in the draft. And as we got closer to draft night, odds were telling us who that number one pick was going to be. Was there ever a question in your mind who that number one pick was going to be, whether it be Peterson or Dybansta?
So first of all, I appreciate the compliment on the media stuff. There are some people that I don't necessarily get along with in the media, but as far as the pick is concerned, to me, it was a no-brainer. I can't speak for what the Washington Wizards were thinking up until draft night. I do think signing Trae Young to that big extension on whatever it was, Monday, early Tuesday, was probably pretty indicative that it was going to be A.J. Dybansta. But to me, it was Dybansta, and it was for a couple simple reasons. One, the talent is there. I mean, nation's leading scorer, 25-plus points a game, 7 boards a game on the wing, improving three-point shot. But I also think when you have all the issues that come with Darren Peterson, and they've been well documented, and we don't need to revisit them all now here unless you guys want to. AJ Dybansta, the thing that stood out to me, BYU by the end of the season had 6 season-ending injuries, which for a college team that plays 40 games is preposterous. And I remember saying it at the time, you get to mid-February, you get to late February, it's very clear that the season that BYU was hoping to have, they were not going to have. And it would have been easy for AJ, and I'll be transparent, I don't even know if I would have blamed him, to all of a sudden have a mysterious ankle injury or a calf injury or a back injury and just say, you know what, this season isn't going the way that I expected. It would be easy for me to dip out right now. Instead, you go back, final 5 games, 3 Big 12 tournament games, regular season finale, NCAA tournament game. He played 37-plus minutes in every single one of those games, 40 minutes in 3 of the 5. And so on top of the talent, you got to have the baseline talent, but he showed up when his team needed him. That's the thing that I loved about him. And so to me, it was a no-brainer. And like I said, I do think it became a little bit easier once Washington made that decision to give Trae Young a lot of money on Monday or Tuesday.
Look at the Wizards going forward. Obviously, this was one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the NBA last year. That said, San Antonio Spurs in 24-25 were 13th in the Western Conference. We saw what they did this year. You can win quickly in the NBA. I put a tweet out last night. Maybe it was a little crazy. Wizards look like a playoff team to me now all of a sudden. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know if they'll make some noise, but, I mean, we can win quickly in the NBA now. You have Trae Young. You have AD. Sarr's a solid player. Bonds a generational talent. Got a little bench there. It's not crazy, no?
No, it's not. I mean, especially, I don't know how far you would necessarily have them going, but East is wide open. Obviously, Milwaukee's going to take a step back. Not that they were a playoff team. I'm sure you guys talked about Giannis, cool trade. I don't know that it fundamentally makes Miami significantly better. And so East being wide open, Trae Young, for all his faults, up until this year, pretty much plays, pretty much puts up stats. Is he a guy that I would personally want to build around? Not necessarily. But he's going to show up ready to play. I think AJ is going to be able to produce right away. Now, does it translate to wins? That's obviously remains to be seen. I think the X factor is obviously the health of Anthony Davis. How many games is he actually playing? But no, I mean, I think that top 3, I haven't sat down and, put pen to paper on where that would rank in the East. But again, you get by the Bostons, obviously the Knicks, we know what they just did. I think they're, not only do I think they'll be in the playoffs, it wouldn't surprise me if they, the main bracket's not the right thing because they had, 7 and 8 play in that play-in, but it wouldn't surprise, if they were the 6th seed next year, it would not surprise me at all.
Great.
So if we take a look at the top 3 here, Dybansta goes 1, Peterson 2, and then Cameron Boozer 3. We figured that was going to be the top 3. Maybe a little bit of a shakeup if something surprised us here, but we didn't get that. Out of the rest of the top 10 for you, Aaron, 4 through 10, were there any surprises that you thought somebody might have gotten overdrafted, or maybe there were some steals a little bit later in the draft? But talk to me about that top 10 according to what you thought it was going to be before the draft started.
Yeah, I actually tweeted out during the first round, the top 8, it was about as boring of a draft as you could ever imagine, right? The top 4, we kind of knew how they were going to go. Then everybody thought the guards would go, the run on guards would come with, in some order, Wagler, Kingston Flemings, Darius Acuff, and Mikal Brown Jr. And I was saying, I'm sure I could say it on this show, but, no interesting girlfriend scenarios. The parents all seemed awesome. It's it was just the most uneventful top 8. And then it brings us to 9. And listen, I think it's a little bit overblown, the whole like, oh, Dusty May drafts Merez Johnson Jr. It's like, dude, Dusty May got the job literally 24 hours before the draft. Like the idea that he was jumping on a table day one and saying, take my guy, like, I don't think that was something that was probably realistically happening. Now, once the Mavs maybe narrowed it down to a guy or two, did they lean on him? I'm sure they did. But yeah, it was surprising because, Merez Johnson Jr. was a guy that, listen, Jaxel Lenenborg was the Big Ten player of the year. Adai Mara was excellent, and I thought in many ways their most important player. And Merez Johnson Jr. was kind of just the guy that did all the dirty work and never really got the credit. So to me, that was absolutely the big surprise, especially early of the NBA draft. And, and listen, I think the other thing too with Dallas, like they have their guy of the future. Now it's about finding pieces that fit around him. I know some people thought Burries might go there or maybe even a Dimara, but I think it makes sense on paper, but I don't think I necessarily saw anybody projecting that. And then obviously the Dusty May tie, I think takes it kind of in a different direction. I don't think anybody was anticipating.
Last night, you know who I was live texting with during this NBA draft? This shows you how, as Aaron says, boring or maybe kind of random it was. My mother, she loves the NBA draft. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She's texting me, wow, his mother's beautiful. What a beautiful family. And he's right. I mean, everything seemed just so like simple, right? There was we didn't see no girlfriend. You're looking at her boyfriend's phone. It just, it worked out.
That was
but Aaron. Yeah. Go ahead.
No. I was going to say, like, yesterday, that video, because obviously the Wizards having the number one pick, like, the video of Jan Vesely from, like, 8-9 years ago popped up, and, like, he's got this girlfriend, and she lays it on him pretty good when he gets drafted. I'm like, dude, we don't even have girlfriends. Listen, the NBA and college basketball and amateur basketball, it's become too corporate now. The agents are involved. The parents know the traps to look out for. I'm like, I can't even get a girlfriend situation here. So, but no, I did actually literally think about that during the first 8 picks of like, not only has this gone exactly to plan, there's no funny looking suits, there's no interesting girlfriends, there's no parent situation going on. It was just pretty much par for the course.
Even we're told like Darren Peterson doesn't want to go to Utah. Like, he seemed pretty happy to me. I don't know. Seemed fine. But I want to get to why, like, we just kind of under the impression at this point, like the NIL, we know what it was originally put out there for.
Sure.
To pay people for, all the money that these institutions are making. I get that. You want to do that? Fine. But this isn't worked long-term in keeping players in college. Okay, we look at the last 2 years, the most freshmen to ever leave. This hasn't enticed them to stay. And why would it? That's not what it was necessarily made for. And that's not necessarily what I mean. I'm looking at players like, who on God's green earth is advising Koa Pete? Who the hell told him to go to the NBA draft and stay in it? This is a guy who will make double staying at Arizona. I guess I'm just looking at it from an advisor standpoint. It hasn't enticed. You look at Isaiah Evans, Henry Visser. They didn't even get drafted. Who's advising them? Wasn't the NIL supposed to kind of entice them to come back? Hadn't worked.
Yeah, every situation is a little bit different. I'm a UConn alum, and Braylon Mullins didn't even test the waters, which for a UConn guy, thrilled to have him back. I think every guy's a little bit different. Koa Pete, by the way, Jeff, you ask who's advising him. Well, his agent is Rich Paul, and I was thinking about this. Is that like I hate to say it, but in many ways, I was thinking about this, and it's a weird comparison. But it's like I think Rich Paul. It's almost like Calipari in that, like, Calipari, like, his whole thing is I get this many guys to the draft and this and that. And I hate to say it like this because I do like Coach Cal and respect him, but like there's some shrapnel along the way. There's some guys that get lost along the way. And with Rich Paul, I think his thing is, I'm Rich Paul, I'm going to get you drafted wherever. But you're right, Jeff. I mean, listen, the thing is too, and we've seen this across all these drafts, is there are always examples of guys that are projected to go here that for whatever reason on draft nights, they all fall. By the end of the NBA draft combine, which was about the middle of May, it was pretty much universally understood that Koa Pete was very much on the fringes of the first round and that he might not go in the first round. And so he ended up being the last pick of the first round. But, there's a lot of other scenarios where that isn't necessarily the case. And you can't sit there and say, well, something weird happened in the medicals at the 11th hour. There was some weird off the court issue. It was like, We understand that, he didn't measure great at the combine. He measured it at about 6'7", which if you're basically a power forward, I remember saying this at the time, but like Morez Johnson Jr. measured in almost 6'10" without shoes. Koa Pete measured in at 6'7". In theory, they're playing the same position. So he didn't measure well. He doesn't shoot, which obviously we all know in the NBA, that's as important as it's ever been. And so that to me, again, players should do whatever they think is best for them. But like Koa Pete was the ultimate. There was no surprise again at the 11th hour. There was no, I can't believe he kind of got drafted where everybody projected him to, and many people had him falling into the second round. So
you're telling me that Rich Paul, and I know you don't want to say it, but I will. Rich Paul's a slithering snake that only cares about himself, does not care about the young people in this country that he's supposed to care about. Is that a surprise? No, agents have done that for years. They're scumbags who don't care about anybody but themselves, and all they do is make money. And he wouldn't make any money if Koa Pete went back to college. He'd make money if Koa Pete went to the NBA. It's just sad. This has been going on for years. These people claim to care about these young people. And what's really sad is Koa Pete, it also doesn't help that his shot's completely broken. That's concerning as well. But, look, I don't know if Michigan, Donnie, was a winner or loser. Was the institution a winner last night? Yeah, but what do they have going back there now? That team goes from big time to whatever the hell they are now.
Yeah, I don't know. So all I'll say is this, is that I understand college basketball and college football, these sports aren't in a great place as far as institutionally behind the scenes, all that stuff. I did think it was kind of a little bit overblown on Monday when Dusty May decided to leave of like, hey, just the state of college. I'm like, I saw Michael Malone get fired a week before the playoffs a couple years ago because the team didn't believe in him when they were like the 3 seed. So like this notion that, the NBA is just this utopia and nothing ever goes wrong for Dusty May. I don't know what else there is to say. I think what draft night did prove is that they were by far the best team. I saw them in Vegas early in the year and it never really slowed down, right? Like and I remember even at the time saying like, this is clearly the best team. And Arizona fans got mad. I think there was a moment last year where we thought Florida was kind of that squad that was kind of coming up. And it was like, it was always Michigan. Like I said, they played that Vegas tournament. And I want to say all 3 wins were by 30 plus points. It was like, and so it just got proven last night. And I think the other thing too, that it proved, and I'll be curious because obviously Dusty May is now in the NBA, but outside of Yasa Lendenborg, none of those guys came to Michigan as like, oh, they're surefire NBA guys. And I do still think, as somebody who loves college basketball, I still think it proves there is a place in college basketball now, especially with NIL, for guys to stay that extra year, develop, get better. And I thought, it was a win on Tuesday night for Michigan. It's probably a lost big picture over the course of the week, but they were obviously the biggest story from a college perspective probably on Tuesday night.
Now, we got a good story for you here, Aaron. I want you to listen up on this one. You ready for this? Number 22 in the draft last night. We're Philadelphia Sixers fans here in the upper East Coast. LeBaron Philon Jr. comes to the Sixers, which I think was a very good pick. Now, Jeff probably thinks it's also a very good pick. But, Jeff, lay it on the line for Aaron here about that Philadelphia 76 organization and what you actually really feel about them.
I want to just... It'll only take about a minute, but this could take 6 hours because I could truly sit here and talk to you about how this is the worst run franchise in sports. Not only am I probably the quintessential fan you want to market to, I love basketball. I fell in love with it as a child. Allen Iverson still is my boyhood hero. It always has been, always will be. But I've watched this team make hideous mistake and hideous decision after hideous decision. And the problem that I had last night is you have the best draft really in 20 plus years. You have one goddamn pick in the entire draft. And it's at 22 where you don't know what the hell you're going to do. Do I like LeBaron Philon? Yeah. Should he probably have been drafted a little bit earlier? Yeah. Will I think he helped this team? Sure. You need role players. He'll be a good one. He's not going to start next year. He's not going to completely transcend your organization. And where do we go in the second round? Where do we fill out this team? Nowhere, because you don't have any picks. This team has completely spurned the draft for years, and when they did have opportunities, they've failed miserably. And now we look at where we are as an organization where people like me say, I don't give a shit. I don't care. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to support. I've had it with this organization. I hate Josh Harris. Not only should he be removed from ownership, but he is on the Epstein list, for God's sakes. Let's just be honest. What are we doing here? This organization sucks. I hate them. And I'm just tired of everything about them. I'm tired.
Can I piggyback off that a little bit? Not so much the Sixers. Watching the Giannis trade, and they get no players that excite you at all in that trade. Like Tyler Hero, whatever. Is he the 78th best player in the league? Whatever. And I was thinking going into the draft, I'm like, if I was Milwaukee, what I would do is I would package pick 10 and 13, try to move up to 5. The Clippers are trying to move back. And I would draft Darius Acuff because at minimum, people know who Darius Acuff is. He could put up bad stats or good stats on a bad team. And at least you give the fans a reason to be excited. And I bring it up because they instead went with another guy who's a catch and shoot guy, Braden Burries. He's just basically a different version of Tyler Hero. And they went with Nate Ament, who's like a year away from maybe being a year away. And it really like struck me of there are just some really like poorly run teams and I'm not like a day-to-day NBA guy, but it just struck me of, and Nadu, I saw you tweet out about the Nets, and I'm sure you probably think much the same about them, is like, if you're a Nets fan, like, and I think Mikal Brown Jr. has the chance to be good, but like, who's excited to go watch that team? And I was thinking the same thing with the Bucks. You draft two guys that could be very good players down the road that zero people are excited to watch. And it just speaks to me of like, we talk about it every day in sports, the well-run organizations versus the poorly run organizations. But it really hit me last night of like, oh, the Oklahoma City Thunder somehow got two more guys in the first round who are going to help them compete for championships. The Bucks had 2 top 15 picks and drafted 2 guys that no one will be excited about. One of these is not like the other. So
what makes the Sixers like 10 times worse is not only do they suck horrifically in the NBA draft, but how many goddamn people do we have to bring to this team that are has-beens? James Harden's a has-been. Paul George is a has-been. You know, all these has-beens. Get some new blood in here. What do we I could go on for 3 hours about this. Not only throw in, you always draft the wrong player, right? You could have had Tatum, but you draft Ben Simmons or Markelle Fultz. You could have had DeMarcus Cousins, but you drafted fucking Evan Turner. I mean, I've had it. I hate this organization. Donnie, I hate him.
Yeah, Jeff hates him. That's look, a lot of hate on the show, which we need, Aaron, at this point. But before I let you go, I need one more concept out of you for the Eastern Conference. Okay, Jaylen Brown. He's still left in Boston. He's telling everybody, boy, I would love to get out of here. I don't care if it's a bad team. Give me the basketball. Let me score 40 a night. I'm going to be happy. I don't want to win championships. I don't want to compete with Tatum. I want my own team. Is he sooner than later out of Boston?
Yeah, it was really interesting just watching the whole Giannis thing unfold the last couple days. And I really was thinking, like, it's any athlete, but he knows he was in trade rumors. They decided not to move him. I just don't know how excited. Listen, we've all had employers and we all know stuff's going on behind the scenes, whatever. And if you're Jaylen Brown, are you excited to be with a place that I don't want to say they don't want you, but they were willing to move off of you to bring in somebody else? So I think interesting little to this offseason. And to your point, Donnie, like just watching from a distance, I mean, you go back to the day after they lost to the Philadelphia 76ers in the playoffs. Jaylen Brown live stream like, that was the best season of my career. Great time. And I'm like, we really want to say that the day after. Jeff, I don't know if they got swept or it was 5 games. I think it was it was at 7. It was 7. I think they lost in 7. But anyway, it was like, that's really, that was the best season of your career. You made like 8 Eastern Conference finals in your first 9 years, but the year you lose in round 1 was the best year. So something weird's going on there. I'd be lying if I said I know if he's definitively moved or where he eventually lands, but it is a weird vibe right now in Boston. So
it absolutely is at this point. Aaron Torres, fantastic stuff. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, real quick. I just want to just college question. So Aaron, I've gotten into it for like a year straight with these stupid Iowa fans, right?
Sure.
If you were Michigan, wouldn't you back the Brinks truck up to Ben McCollum?
So it's a really weird situation.
He's Dusty May.
What's that?
he's Dusty May. Like he's the exact. That's what I see him trajectory wise.
So I'll tell you a quick side story. At the Final Four this year, so Josh Schertz is the coach at St. Louis. St. Louis, they ended up, like 28-5 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And there was a rumor that Dusty May was telling Josh Schertz, don't take a bad job, basically. And the insinuation was that the Michigan job was going to be open. Now, I thought maybe it had to do with Carolina, but clearly Carolina, he wasn't interested in. Clearly the NBA was where he wanted to be. The Boynton thing is weird because if you go through that 2-week search where you don't name somebody at players, they can't technically enter the portal, but to your point earlier, Jeff, they all have agents. Agents are doing their jobs. And it's like, if you don't land that A++ guy right away and it becomes a week, 10 days, all of a sudden you could lose that team. So I understand why they did what they did. It was weird. I was telling somebody this the other day, or yesterday about Michigan is it's like the best case, worst case scenario of he'll be just good enough to probably keep the job for 3 to 4 years, but not good enough to you're going to know pretty quickly this isn't Dusty May. And that's not a knock on Mike Boynton. Listen, had Cade Cunningham, made an NCAA tournament. He's a fine coach, but there aren't a lot of Dusty Mays out there. And so it's just this weird thing with the portal, the way that it is, you start waiting again 3, 4, 5 days trying to talk to people. Who can you get? Who's interested? Who's not? What kind of contract can you get in and out of? That's the part that would make it tough. But big picture, I like Mike Boynton. Let me put it this way. I don't think he's a Michigan man for, the next 2 decades. I think, like I said, he'll be good enough to keep the job for maybe 2 to 3 years, but I don't know that big picture I don't think anybody could, but I don't think he's going to be able to sustain a big picture, beyond a year or two. So.